Hi everyone, this is Karen from Afong, your Agile Evangelist, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will be talking about another very interesting topic. So I have been getting a lot of questions, regarding remote working. People have been reaching out trying to have more understanding or just asking me, to make a video on how I would handle remote working in an agile Scrum environment. So today that's going to be what we'll be addressing. By the end of this video, you will just have a sneak peek into how remote work would typically happen, and especially having more understanding that will help you address your questions during interview, especially if you're being asked if you have any experience, working remotely. You would agree with me that lately this question is becoming really, really common, during interviews. So like 99% of the time, interviewers will ask you this question, especially in an agile environment, agile and Scrum master interview. They'll typically ask you if you have any experience or if you are familiar with remote working, in an agile Scrum environment. In addition to the pandemic, which we all know that has turned so many organizations and so many people to become remote workers. Another reason why companies are now looking for people who have remote work experience is because right now software development organizations, like so many software development organizations, are now turning to offshore contractors to develop software for them. So they are very interested in looking for leaders, Scrum masters, agile coaches who are familiar with coordinating, supervising, supporting team members that work remotely. So remotely doesn't only necessarily mean remotely in our just within your country. So right now you would hardly find a Scrum team, like you would hardly find a Scrum team that has like 100% internal remote work. So companies are now turning to offshore team members. Typical examples would be companies are now turning to India, to Germany, to UK. I'm talking from my experience as a US based remote worker. They are now turning to these countries to get contractors that will help them accomplish some of the deliverables or some of the outcome that they are looking for in a software development environment. So now you see why it is important for you as an agile leader, a Scrum master, to at least have an understanding on how remote work would normally happen. So now, before we go deep into the topic of today, I just want to give a quick shout out to all my amazing subscribers, my amazing supporters. It's been amazing. So thank you so much. For my new first time watchers, thank you so much for joining, and please go ahead and turn on that subscription button, turn on the notification bell so you will not miss out on any content we upload here on weekly basis. So thank you so much. Now, let's assume that you've gone for an interview, a Scrum Master interview, an Agile Coach interview, an Agile Practitioner interview, a Release Train Engineer interview, and an interviewer asks you, so are you familiar with remote working? Or they'll typically ask you, do you have any experience with remote working? So I usually tell my mentees, the professionals I'm mentoring or people who are looking to transition into the Agile way of working, whenever we are having our sessions, they all know, I usually tell them, when an interviewer asks you a question, you don't just jump to start answering. Just take like a quick 2 seconds to think, what are they trying to get out of this question they're asking me? You just being able to understand what they are trying to get from you by asking you that question, it will help you know how to present your answer in a way that will be selling to them. You see, because you're not the only one applying for that role. There are so many other candidates, it may even be way better than you in terms of experience, in terms of skill set, But now, how do you present your answer in a way that will make you stand out, that will make the interviewer choose you over all these so many other candidates? The only way you can do that is by having some kind of understanding on what they are trying to get out of you by asking that question. Now, let's look at this question. So if an interviewer asks you, do you have any experience with remote working? Typically, people may tend to say yes or no. Yes, I have experience with remote working. Saying yes or no doesn't make you stand out. At the same time, you don't also want to go talking and like going so deep and talking about so many things that may even kind of trap you, and you will not know how to get yourself out of that trap. So you want to be able to address your answer in a way that is short, sweet, and then will be able to give them the information they are looking for. Now, let's address this question. If an interviewer asks me, do I have any experience with remote working? My answer is not just only going to be yes or no. So my answer is going to be yes. Of course, I do have an extensive experience with remote working. Based on my experience, I have worked with remote teams right before the pandemic even started. I've worked with remote teams because most of my team members were based offshore. So I have some team members. So I have internal remote work members as well as external remote work members in terms of country. So most of my team members were based in India. I have other team members that are based in UK. The interviewer may even go further to ask you, wow, isn't that very challenging? Because it's sometimes really challenging to handle remote teams, especially with different time zones and all that stuff, because that's the problem we are currently facing in our organization. That's based on my experience. That's what an interviewer has shared with me. The reason why they are looking for someone with a remote work experience, is to help them handle the issue that they are currently facing with remote teams. So they will typically ask you, isn't that really challenging? Because currently that's the kind of challenge we are facing, and we are looking for someone that has experience in handling remote teams successfully. So if they ask me that kind of a question, I'll be like, oh, sure. It is really challenging, I don't want to claim like, oh, it's perfect and all that, because truly it is not. It is challenging, but if you are able to coordinate, if you're able to identify some of the challenges that a typical remote work environment would normally face, and come up with a strategy on how to, handle or manage the situation in a way that you will still be able to deliver value to your customers and value to the business at the end of the sprint, or you will still be able to meet your sprint goal every sprint and still keep happy team members and happy customers. Now, based on my experience, how do I handle remote work? First of all, before we go into how to handle a remote work environment or remote teams, I would just like to first of all highlight some of the challenges that remote teams would normally face. Now, as remote teams, with varying time zones, you have some team members that are based in India. You have some team members that are based in UK. I even have some team members that kind of have the West Coast time. My own time zone is way different. So all these different time zones, how do you work as a team? How do you keep that team spirit, and still be able to deliver value to your customers, meeting the sprint goal, and still keep a happy work environment? In addition to the diverse cultural background, in addition to, all the other values that team members may be lacking based on the background that they are coming from. They may have some gaps on the Scrum values that we want to represent as we do our work. Now, how do you handle that situation? A typical challenge, the most common challenge is the time zone challenge. So how do you handle that situation? Based on my experience, I have different techniques, or as a team, we have discussed, and we usually discuss and come up with different, ways of, handling our remote teams in a way that we are still able to work as a team, maintain our team spirit, our happy team, and still deliver value to the customer or achieve our sprint goal at the end of the sprint. So how do we handle that situation? First of all, The number one thing that we will do as a team is to set clear expectations. That's the very first thing that I try to do as I join a team that is remote. I first try to set clear expectation. So the way I'll do this is set my team together. We come together typically the very first kickoff meeting or get to know you meeting, I'll put my team together, we discuss and set clear expectation. By so doing, a typical way that we'll do that is by building our team charter. Let's say if we don't already have a team charter, I would put my team together so we can discuss and build a team charter together. That way we are setting clear expectation in terms of the vision, why we are here in the first place, the goal, what are we trying to achieve, and in addition to our rules of behavior, how do we want to behave as a team? What are the values? What are our core values that we want to respect as a team? In addition to that, we want to set rules of communication. During the phase of setting rules of communication, you are identifying these different time zones, and then you're looking for the most appropriate hour that will be favorable to most people, So you're identifying that time, and then you're using that time to build your rules of communication, And then you typically identify all the meetings that you will be having, how you want to communicate, the platforms, the tools that you want to use to communicate and all that. And you all agree to it. Yes, so the very first thing you want to do that will help this situation is to set clear expectations so that everyone is in alignment with why you're here as a team, what you're trying to achieve as a team, and how you want to operate as a team. That's the very first thing you do. Secondly, you want to identify what we normally call the golden hour. Yes, it's very important that you identify the golden hour, again, because you have different time zones. So what we call the golden hour is the time where you would have majority of the team. You have most of the team, so you identify that time, that what we call the overlapping time, set that time as the time where you would want to establish most of your meetings, most of your required meetings, your required Scrum events, and then any other meeting that may be optional, you want to put it at other times, But this golden hour that you need your team members to be there, like stand-up, retrospective, sprint review, backlog refinement, sprint planning. Yeah, you want to set those critical meetings around that golden hour, that overlapping hours, so that you can always have all of your team. While doing that, the third thing that I would usually do to make sure that our team remain intact and we are still able to deliver value, is to be able to sometimes, like optional meetings, just to make sure that everyone is treated fairly, we try to switch, the timing in a way that, like, let's say, for example, some of the team members that are based in India, we do not want to always have meetings that will favor us that are based in the USA. We also want to take into consideration our team members in India, because they are like opposite time zone from us. So typically when it's like 7 o'clock for us, it's around the evening. It's around your late evening. So there'll be some meetings, like some learning meetings, training meetings. You don't also want to go and set those meetings at these overlapping time that they would want to stay working until that time. So in this case, you also want to consider them and put the meeting like in your own evening, set it in your own evening or in your own very early morning. Sometimes you just have to do that sacrifice just to be fair to everybody as a leader. You just have to do that. Yeah. So we try to also set some of our other meetings around that kind of time, keeping into account that, okay, we want everyone to feel that they are being treated fairly, and we still want to be able to have our happy team and still deliver value to our customers at the end of the sprint. Yeah, that's another thing that we would do as a team. Now, another technique that we also use to be able to keep our remote team intact is in situations where we are not able to have all our team members together, at all times, we may also choose to record meetings. So that's part of our team agreement. So we've agreed that when we have critical meetings that we may not be able to have all the team members there, just to be sure that the communication keeps flowing among the team, we'll record those sessions. And then we save them in our shared drive or in our communication portal, where team members that were not able to participate in the meeting, they can come back later and catch up from those the meeting, and still follow along with where the team is at, so that no one is left behind. So that's how we do it. But now there's another trick behind this. So sometimes people may be lazy to go listen to records. They may be lazy, or they may have other priorities and not consider that as important. And if they keep doing that, they will miss out on important communication or important conversation, and that way everyone will not be carried along to where we are heading to. So the way we try to fix this situation is that we've agreed that once we record our meetings, we only put them in that share folder for a week. We put them in there for a week, and once everyone is able to catch up with the record, so just by putting that deadline, it forces, or it kind of pressure people to prioritize that and listen to the video, before it gets deleted, or before we pull them out of that shared folder. Even if we really don't delete it, like completely delete it out of the system, we try to take it out of the shared folder. Just by setting that timeline, it pressures team members to prioritize the listening of that video and catch up with the rest of the team. Yeah, that's another way that we try to keep our remote team work intact. Another way that we also try to keep our remote team work intact, again, keeping in mind the diverse cultural background. People have different interests. People have, based on their background, based on their cultural diversity. So they have different interests. They have different things that motivates them. People think differently, So I usually try to, I take this really, really seriously. So right before we even get to start discussing, going so deep into our work, I always try to connect with my team members one-on-one, connect with everyone one-on-one, to get to know them on a personal level. Not about work, to just get to know them, to try to understand their culture a little bit, try to understand their background, try to understand the things that they are interested in, the things that keeps them going, the things that keeps them motivated. I try to connect with them on a one-on-one basis. That way you would know how you are relating with them, so that you don't go say something that may be offensive to them. So that's how I try to do it, and that has been magical. That's always magical. That communication, that one-on-one connection, it's everything. So I try to do that, relate with my team members. That's how, again, that's an opportunity to gain their trust. It's a big opportunity to gain their trust. Yeah. So I do that, and now I already know, I have an idea on their culture, and I have an idea on what motivates them, what their interests are, So I use that information, keeping in mind. So whenever we are working, I keep that in mind, just to be sure that we all are being treated fairly, in terms of diversity in culture, diversity in background, diversity in race, diversity in skill set, diversity in opinion, and things like that. So I really keep that in mind, So that's another important thing that we do. One other way that we try to keep our remote work intact is by establishing video calls. So whenever we are in our meetings, we try as much as possible to turn on our videos. We turn on our videos, so that, just by you being able to see people, see their body language, see their facial expression and all that, it's magical. It sounds very simple, or it's not really anything, but trust me, it changes a lot of things. It helps us connect as a team. Even though we are at different countries, it helps us connect as a team. So yeah, these are some of the things that I do in order to keep our remote work intact, So yeah, this is just based on my experience. There may be other points, but I cannot just, say everything here. So in summary, that's how I have been able to keep my remote teams intact, both onshore and offshore remote workers. Now, I guess this is going to be the end of this video. So if you have questions, or you have other ideas or other thoughts on how you keep your remote teams intact to still be able to have a happy team, happy customers at the end of the day, and deliver value to your business, great outcome, please go ahead and share. Drop them in the comment section. If you have not subscribed yet, please go ahead and turn on that subscription button. It means a lot to me. It simply means you support my platform, you support my vision, and you support my message. Turn on that button and turn on the notification bell. Share with your friends, share at your work, so that we all can just continue to grow and learn in this agile space, this agile way of working, this agile way of life. I'm just so obsessed with this whole agile talk, So I don't even plan to end anytime soon, because this is my happy place. This is my happy place, So thank you all so much, as this is the end of this video. If you have other thoughts, have other ideas, have any other thing that you'd want me to talk about, please continue to leverage the comment section, share, drop your thoughts. I would add them in the backlog and prioritize them and, deliver them to yours truly. Thank you all so much. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you listening to me. Hope to talk with you next week. Bye.